Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. And today is, of course, our Game Week 31 National League predictions. Now, if you are wanting consistency, I have to be honest, this YouTube channel doesn't give you any. Tonight, as you can see, I am joined by Sam Collier. Of course, kind of a regular contributor now to the channel. But of course, my regular co-host is off skiing, gallivanting, I think, in Switzerland or somewhere like that anyway, enjoying himself. But Sam, firstly, thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Anytime. I'm always happy to come on. I love this podcast, always listening. So yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, there's been questions about Paul just basically skiving off in the aim that you can gain back him some points. Of course, he actually won the game week, which we'll come on to in the previous week. He beat me by a point. I don't think either of us covered ourselves in any glory, to be honest. But we'll get those points up shortly. And of course, he did win the game week. Please remember to check out our sponsors, though. Cards Accepted. If you use the link in the description, you will get 50% off your card machine. Also, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, we just want to keep growing this community even more. And also, if you'd like to become a channel member, you can get early access to videos and you can use custom emojis for your club in the live chat. Then it's just £2.99. I think you have to be on a computer or an iPad to be able to do that. But if you would like to do that, then there should be an option to join the channel as well. Or you can just support the channel by just subscribing. But no, that's enough of the admin side of things. We'll see who's already here and who's joined us. Of course, there's a fair few games that we've got to discuss tonight. Well, that we're going to reflect on. Firstly, coming in, we've got Mickey with us saying, hello, lads. Hope you're well. Welcome to the stream, Mickey, of course, a Gateshead fan himself. And then Stephen Jones has come in and said, up the Fylde. Yes, of course, all the Fylde fans will be in tonight after defeating us on Tuesday evening. Fair play. A very good win for you guys. And I always think this with Fylde. I don't know about you when you've seen Woking play Fylde in the past on NLTV, but I get the impression that they've actually got some very, very good individuals in that side. The issue with Fylde is it doesn't feel like they can play well as a team. Of course, defensively, they're very vulnerable. But, you know, I looked on Tuesday night. I didn't think the opposition were a particularly bad side. Of course, they beat us. But I actually thought Halifax played half decent and we still lost to a side that's only got one win away from home all season prior to that game. I think, I have to say, it does always feel like they're in a false position, but they never seem to improve.
Yeah. I mean, with Fylde, it's kind of, you know, you pretty much bang the nail on the head there. I always look at them as, you know, they've got a good group of individuals, but you know, for whatever reason, the system, the tactics, and you know, the team cohesion never seems to kind of line up. You know, they're in a spot of trouble this year, but I always look at Fylde, especially this season at the moment, and the way he's playing. But when you got a player like Nick Horton in that team, then you can never really write them off to be going down at this stage or anything. But yeah, I mean, he scored the penalty, didn't he? Was it a penalty he scored midweek? Yeah. But yeah, that takes up to, I think, 17 goals for the season or something like that. Yeah, top player, you know, and they've got a few players of high quality in and around him too.
Yeah, and of course, we're going to review that game very shortly in a little bit more detail as well. Caroline is in tonight with the Aldershot emoji, of course, a channel member, one of the first channel members as well for the channel. So it's good to see you here tonight once again, Caroline, of course, an Aldershot supporter. And then we've had an Oldham fan who's actually asked you a question, Sam, about Michael Fondop. Sam, a fellow Fondop lover here. Thoughts on his form, and do you think he has a shot up got a shot at top goal scorer? Yeah, 16 goals in all competitions now for him this season.
Yeah, he's on fire at the moment, and you know, it's like he got dropped when Stones was there, maybe a bit unfairly. Back now, like he never left really. He's scoring for fun. You know, I know a few Oldham fans have, you know, rued some of the chances that he has missed, but you know, at National League level, I think that is going to happen with centre forwards. Yeah, I mean, if they play to his strengths and he's scoring at the rate he is at the moment, I don't see why he couldn't compete for it at the top of that Golden Boot table. Yeah.
And we've also had Sam who's come in and said up the shots, another Aldershot supporter, and then Stingstone and Maidstone fans coming in and said evening, welcome to the stream as well. Yeah, so just reflecting on Tuesday night's results, I think that's a perfect way to start tonight's podcast. Of course, Oldham versus Rochdale, a derby. Oldham got a second win on the bounce after being winless in the previous 5, and it came, of course, against a fellow promotion rival and overall rival as well, Rochdale. Oldham up to 4th now. I think they needed that win. They need a bit of a run of form. I saw them against York, and I have to say they looked very poor on that evening. So I think from their perspective, it's good to see that they've got back to winning ways now with back-to-back wins.
Yeah, with Oldham, I think they are I think they've had a bit of a rough patch, but I think it was a bit of a stark reminder about what they are capable of. They have had a few outgoings and quite a few incomings as well, so you don't really know how the team's going to gel and if it's going to click as much as it did before the January period. But it seems to be working. I quite like that Jake Leake. He played left of the back 3 for them and played wing back the game before as well. He looks like quite a strong asset. The midfield, it's totally revamped now. Tom Pett's come in and I think he's looked quite good. But yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a tough time for Oldham, but like I said, Fondop scoring. Some of the signings that have come in have started to really look the part now, and I think they're probably maybe not quite back to where they were before Christmas, but I think they're close to it again.
What do you think Oldham's overall expectations are for the season? Now, I know in the previous podcast that I think we did with Rob as well, last time you were on the podcast, we spoke about Oldham being involved in the title race. For me personally now, I think because of those previous results and them overall as a side, it's give me the impression that I don't think they're actually capable of being able to compete with some of the sides above them in the likes of York and Barnet, perhaps. But what do you think Oldham's overall expectations are? Is it to maintain a playoff spot? Is it top 3? Or do you still feel they could potentially win this title?
I think as far as the title goes, I don't think they should particularly worry about that. I don't see a team that can, it's been a bit of a tough patch for them, like I said, but these top teams around them, they're not going on these kind of tough patches. This has given them a huge advantage. I think even if they win their games in hand, there's still something like 6 points off the top. So I think a realistic target for them would be to try and finish in that 2nd or 3rd place, but to try and make the playoffs as easy as possible for them. We all know at this level how difficult the playoffs are. It's an absolute potluck once it gets round to it. So taking an extra game out of it gives you a world of a boost, that's for sure. So yeah, I think top 2, 2nd or 3rd should be the aim for them now, because I think the small dip has kind of maybe pushed the title just out of reach for them.
Yeah, I'd have to agree as well. Like I've said, I don't want to be too negative on them because they've just got back-to-back wins. But when I saw them against York, I have to say they were very, very poor, and they didn't look like the Oldham side that we'd seen prior to Christmas. And I think the question is now can they get back to that? Can they go on a run of form like they were before Christmas? Because before Christmas, they had the best form in the division. Now, I think everyone was saying, look, they're this close to being involved in this title race. They've got games in hand on sides above them. And perhaps you could say they've blown it, but I think they've been kind of a little maybe unfortunate with the amount of losses that they've had. It's probably something that Oldham aren't used to in a way in this division because, they're usually very good at being able to maintain their players. But some of the players that they've had this season, in the likes of Clucas, it was always going to be hard to keep him at the club. And then also when you've got a player on loan, no matter what club you are, it's always going to be hard to sign them on a permanent basis, particularly when you've got another club who can offer more money than yourselves or prepared to spend more money than yourselves. And it's always going to be hard when you're losing key players like that. As for Rochdale, 3 games in hand still for them. Of course, it's very much in their hands to be able to progress further into these playoffs now. It did feel like a missed opportunity for them, though. They haven't played in a long time, against a rival. I think they could have actually closed a gap on them, and they could have gone above them if they won the games in hand after. Now it's not in their hands. Oldham can stay above them now. I think the concern for me for Rochdale is the fact that they're still in the FA Trophy. If they win the game against Wolves under 21s on Tuesday night, then they will actually stay in the National League Cup as well. We've spoke about them having games in hand, and yes, it's all well and good having games in hand, but when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday until the end of the season, it's going to take its toll on any side in this division. And I don't feel Rochdale's got one of the biggest squads in the division either. So for me overall, are you a little bit concerned for Rochdale being able to stay inside these playoffs?
I would overall. I think I'd still expect them to finish in the top 7. But as you mentioned, the amount of games they've called off and the fixture congestion they've got coming up because of that. That's a uphill battle, that's for sure, because you much rather have points on the board. You don't want to be you don't particularly want to be chasing, especially just teams of such high caliber above them. But I also think the game against Oldham on Tuesday night, and I think they might have been a bit rusty as well. The amount of it's been a long time since they've consistently strung a group of matches together. That doesn't benefit the squad and the freshness of the players, and that can also play a big part. So overall, I still expect them to maybe to get top 7, but maybe I think they would, where they maybe at one point would have been looking to try and push to catch up the likes of Oldham and Gateshead and stuff like that. I think maybe this might be a sign that they could tail off, but if they can get back up to speed and start picking up some results sooner rather than later, that'd be a big game changer for them once again.
A few people as well have come in with the comments as well. But do you guys think Mike Williamson will drop down to the National League or wait for an EFL job? Yes, I believe he's been let go, hasn't he, by Carlisle. Of course, the side really struggling. I think they're sat bottom, aren't they, in League 2 at the moment? Could you see him coming back into this division, or do you think he'll be waiting out for an EFL job?
I can see him dropping down to the National League. I don't think the Carlisle job did him any good, really. When he was appointed, it was, I don't think the team that they had and the players that they had at his disposal fit the way that he wanted to play. One thing I do find a bit weird is they backed him all of January just to sack him off on the last day. So he's gone and signed all of his players in, to play the way he wants to play. I think they've signed enough players that if he can get them gelled, that they would probably stay up. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one sacking him at the time they did. But no, I could see him dropping down to the National League. He's done good at this level. He played some brilliant football with Gateshead. But I think he's a kind of manager who needs the right squad to play the way he wants to play.
Yeah, I think for me with Carlisle, them coming into the National League, they're a huge club. I think that was the first time in their history, I believe, that they'd actually be dropping into the National League. So it'll be interesting to see if I think Mark Hughes has gone there now, if he can keep them up. But of course, sticking with the National League, we've also had an Oldham fan who's come and said Oldham have signed a lot of midfielders, but so far all look quite good. I think York came a little too quick with the new midfield to gel, and against Rochdale, Pritchard off the bench looked immense. Yeah, that was one of the marquee signings, I suppose, that Oldham got. I believe they actually got him on loan. I know he's at Accrington. I don't know who they actually ended up loaning him in from, but I know he was once at Accrington and I believe Fleetwood as well.
Yeah, Pritchard, I quite like. I think he's on a permanent Pritchard. He got let go by MK Dons. Yeah, they relieved him of his contract, but yeah, he's a different type of midfielder to what they've recruited this January. He's got that ability to play a killer ball. He can also play out wide if need be. And he put in a pretty good cameo towards the back end of the game on Tuesday. But there's a lot of new bodies in the midfield for Oldham. Worthington, Jorgenathan, Pett, Rossiter. Corey Evans may be injured, but he's also come in. I mean, it's a complete restructure. That's a lot of players to try and keep happy now, and I'm very intrigued to see how they manage to fit all these players in and give them the minutes they need and what they're promised, because that's a hell of a lot to juggle, especially at this stage of the season where maybe you can't give some players as much game time as you want because it comes down to these important fixtures. So yeah, it's an interesting one, really. I didn't expect them to sign this many midfielders. I still think they're light up front, especially considering that, but yes, a fair few of them, Rossiter, Pett, and Pritchard especially, I think look really promising at the moment.
Yeah, I think going forward as well, you mentioned there about them needing to add a bit more quality, perhaps. I think for me, that is something I'd disagree with. You've got Norwood, Fondop's producing the numbers this season. I've always kind of rated him as a striker, not particularly as a goal scorer, but as a number 9. I think he's solid at holding the ball and does a job for you. But this season, his goals per game ratios significantly improved. Like I mentioned, there 16 goals, I believe, in 32 matches in total this season. And then you look at Norwood as well. Billy Waters has come in. Yes, he's not got going yet, but he's a player that offers something a little bit different as well. Of course, of letting Alex Reid go back to Wheelstone, maybe there is an opportunity for Oldham to bring in another striker. But has there been any rumours at all of any more signings for Oldham? Or
yeah, there's been. I've seen a few things here and there talking about Kane Drummond maybe coming back from Chesterfield, which I think would make a lot of sense. Really, he adds a bit of pace, directness to their attack. He started quite well for them originally, then got recalled. So I think that would make sense for them to add. Just a bit on Billy Waters as well. I really like that signing. Like you said, it's maybe not been the ideal start for him, missing the penalty on his debut, and he's yet to get firing. But I think he's a centre forward that complements the likes of Fondop really well, because he's the kind of player who can run in behind and allow Fondop to drop deep while still stretching the opposition defence. So yeah, I think that also I think that's probably played a key part in Fondop's return as well, and how well he seemed to just kind of slot straight back in too. But yeah, like I said, I think those two pretty good options to have up front. Whether they need to add one more in terms of depth, I think they might do. And like you said, I think Drummond would be a good option. But yeah, they do have some good options up front too.
Lee is also with us tonight, of course, a Wrexham fan that still tunes in. Welcome to the stream, Lee. And then we've also had Jack, who said, what happened to the vlog against York? Basically, we had a plan, me and my mates, that we're going to go to Oldham versus York. And then basically, days before I became very, very ill, we still went. We still had the intention of making a vlog. But as I were talking on it, it wouldn't have looked good. Also, we had a number of interviews planned. We ended up turning up very, very late as well. So we missed the time slot to be able to get those interviews in. So there would have been no interviews. We then thought, we'll just try film the game. We filmed it from the Oldham end. We couldn't particularly catch the York fans because of how far away the away end is from where we were sat. And the game itself, after 20 minutes, well, I think after half an hour, both goals had happened. So it just felt like it just would have been quite a poor quality vlog. So yeah, I do apologise for that overall. It was kind of my fault. I was quite ill, and then we missed the time slot for our interviews. But I don't think the game helped overall. And I know there was a few people who also put out a few vlogs for that game. But no, I'll be looking to go to a few more neutral games in the future, and hopefully film some vlogs as well for those. Of course, Halifax versus York is coming up, and I will be going to that in the away end. And I am hoping to film a vlog for that one. But I have to say, I'll be totally honest, it's not my forte. I prefer doing this kind of thing, but it is something that is quite popular. A lot of people seem to enjoy the vlogs, and it does attract a lot of views. So, of course, that's something I may consider doing for the bigger games in the future. And then we've had Jack Connor, who's also a Fylde fan, I believe. Evening, lads. Up the Halifax slaying coasters. Yeah, of course.
Tonight.
Yeah, there will be. Like I've mentioned, that's a game that we can come on to now. Halifax 1, AFC Fylde 2. I don't think many people expected this. A Halifax side that were banging form prior to that game. Fylde won away win all season. I've previously mentioned that I didn't think Fylde were a poor side. I'm not going to come on here and say, we were just awful and Fylde were very lucky. I personally feel that we played half decent, and I just feel Fylde were very clinical on the attack. And like I've said, there's some very, very good individuals in that squad. The likes of Eustabasi, Massey, they're a lad called Tyler Roberts as well. Only 3 goals all season, but impressed me on that night. And then, of course, Nick Horton as well. I really don't understand, and I said this time last year about AFC Fylde as well. When I actually watched them play, I don't understand why they're down there, because when you see them and see some of the football that they can actually produce, you'd think that they're probably a higher in National League club, but defensively they're very poor and they're just very inconsistent as well. Yeah, what's your take on that game overall?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but Nick Horton, it's one key thing when it comes to Fylde. You know, that's the one advantage I think they've got over those sides down the bottom of the table in and around them. You know, a player of that quality, arguably the best, if not one of the best players in this whole division. You know, that kind of quality. You know, it ties into what you're saying regarding you know, having some high level players yet maybe being in a bit of a strange position compared to that, but. Yeah, no, he's a super player. You know, got the penalty, scored the penalty. You know, it's the kind of benefit that a relegation side need to capitalise on, and you know, I think they do at times. Like you said, I do think they got some really high quality players in that squad, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to kind of just click. I know there's been a few things about Phillips and some of the tactical decisions he's made. But honestly, I think I totally agree with you. I think there's a few players in that team who could be playing much higher up the table. You mentioned Tyler Roberts. I'm quite a big fan of him as well. I think they recently just got him on a permanent deal from Wolves. I think, you know, I've seen him play a few times this season. I was quite impressed as well. You know, he's quite a technically gifted footballer. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's you know, they've got a bit of a false position, but it's definitely not a result I expected, seeing the form Halifax are in. You know, there was a few changes to your squad, wasn't there? I think in attacking areas on the Tuesday, maybe that unsettled it somehow. But no, yeah, it's a result that comes as a bit of a shock in terms of, you know, on paper. But yeah, no, it's a good result for Fylde in terms of their relegation fight and their survival hopes. That's for sure.
From a Halifax fan's perspective, after Solihull, I was like that, and then after Ebbsfleet, it went even higher. And then this is just how quickly football can change. I'm back down to here again and being brought back down to earth. We made a few additions in January. Of course, Billy Waters was recalled. I don't particularly feel that we've missed him. We've signed a lad called Luca Thomas, who's coming on loan from Leeds, and he looks like a player, to be fair. Zach Emerson's been given opportunities, which we've been crying out for all season. Also, a lad called Owen Bray, who's been a bit of a fringe player for the first half of the season, has really solidified himself in this squad now to be a regular starter. So for me, overall, I've been very optimistic in recent weeks about Halifax Town and about us actually finishing inside the playoffs. I put a tweet out after Saturday basically saying that I think this is the strongest Halifax side that it's ever been under Chris Millington. And to be fair, I do still stand by that. I was fairly confident going into the Fylde game. What frustrated me is the fact that we changed the winning side, and it wasn't down to injuries. You can say it's fitness, but I think professional footballers, when they're on form as well and playing well, should be able to play Saturday, Tuesday. It's not even a case of that. It was just a Saturday and then a Tuesday. For me personally, overall, I feel that players should be capable of playing on a Saturday and then on a Tuesday. And those players who actually came on, who started on Saturday and then were dropped to the bench on Tuesday, actually improved it and didn't look unfit to me at all. So that frustrated me a little bit. I think we're trying to be a little bit too cute by resting players for Saturday's game, which I think, to be honest, weakened us, particularly after we'd just won. Yeah, it's frustrating. I think a big question for Halifax is the away form is on point. But you look at the away form and we're 17th in the league. The home form, so we were 17th in the league. From an external perspective like yourself, when you're looking at Halifax and their home form, what do you feel the issue is there? Because they're so good away from home, but when it comes to playing at the Shea, they seem to really struggle.
From an outside perspective, it does seem, you know, I think it does maybe come a bit down to the system that Halifax like to play. You know, they base their play style very much on, you know, being defensively strong and, you know, they can hit teams on the break. You know, they got a bit of pace up there now with Thomas. You know, it is all about, has been about with Millington about a lot of the time maybe not losing rather than going out to win games. And I think when you're playing at home, I think you should be going out to try and win games. And I think you should be out trying to, you know, see off opposition. So I don't think that maybe the style that Halifax look to play maybe benefits them at home. Obviously, you've got the you know, games quite frequently called off during certain periods of the season at Halifax. You know, maybe the quality of the pitch as well. You know, that, you know, it's the little differences like that. Of course, it's the same for the opposition, but, you know, it's just throwing it out there. But all in all, it's kind of hard to put a finger on it really, because it's at the end of the day, there shouldn't be a difference in terms of what happens on the pitch in terms of home and away. But yeah, I think I'd put it down to maybe the style of play, and maybe it's hard to kind of explain really. Maybe the fact, like you said, maybe going at home, not trying to put games to bed at home rather than and more so focusing on not losing. I think that may be a bit of a concern.
I agree with a lot of your points there, and kind of just to add to that, I think when you look at Halifax's budget, and it does come down to budget, the way Halifax recruit, they can't go and sign lots of star players, so they have to be quite shrewd with their recruitment. Now, I say this because they recruit to be very strong defensively and work really, really hard as a team to be strong defensively, which will work away from home when you're sitting back and catching sides on the break like we do. But when it comes to home games, you need to take the game to the opposition. And I don't think that's something that particularly Halifax do, especially in the first half of games at home. I don't feel the intensity's there. The reason I've been quite more optimistic about Halifax in recent weeks is the fact that I feel like the squad's better adapted now to playing home games, and I stand by that. I think we've got a lot more quality going forward now in Luca Thomas coming in. Of course, Olo Abor is, some will say, a huge loss. For me personally, I wouldn't say he's irreplaceable, but he offers something a little bit different. I think if we'd have brought him on Tuesday night, he could have changed that game. I think everyone's very well aware of him. He's very inconsistent. There'll be a lot of people in here saying that he's an awful player, and there'll be a lot of people in here saying he shouldn't be playing at this level, and he's a League One standard player. So he's a very inconsistent player. But he's another player that offers something different. But I do feel we're better equipped to home. I put Tuesday night down to changing the team, and that's the main reason for that. Still feel I'd like to think that squad should have beaten that Fylde side, considering Fylde's position overall. But I have to give Fylde credit. They were a lot better than what I thought they would be. And they always do seem to be when Halifax do come up against them. So, yeah, a lot of credit to Fylde. There's a lot of talent in that squad, and hopefully they can start playing a little bit better as a team and perhaps getting a few more results, because if they play like that every week, for me personally, they won't have any issues with going down this season. And of course, they're out of the drop zone now. As for another side down there, Wealdstone versus Tamworth, a huge opportunity for Wealdstone with the games in hand to get a win at home. 3 games now, Fylde, Solihull and Tamworth. They've got picked up 1 point in those 3 games, 2 of those games as well at home. You would have thought that Wealdstone could have potentially got more points on the board than that. Of course, a defeat to Tamworth on Tuesday evening. Poor result for them, but a good result for Tamworth.
Yeah, I think it's quite a big game in terms of down the bottom of the table, because as good a season Tamworth are having as a part-time team, every point counts at this level. It's probably one Wealdstone would have been really hoping to get 3 points from, if I'm being honest. Obviously, they have the new manager in now, so things might take time to adjust a little bit. But I think the red card to Kretschmar probably made a big difference to the game. Yeah. The goal went in just a few minutes after he got sent off. But I think with the quality, comparing on paper, looking at the quality of the 2 teams, I think it's probably a match that Wealdstone would have hoped to get 3 points from. I do think that both teams will probably stay up this season. I think they've both got enough quality in the sides to just see out the season now. I do think there are 4 teams worse than both of them. But it's a big result for Tamworth, and it's a side as well that they've struggled for goals in recent weeks, especially. They drew 2-2 to Aldershot, but the 1-0 loss to Barnet. Even in the National League Cup, 2-0 loss to Middlesbrough under 21s, but they have struggled. They are a very defensively structured side, and these points against these sides in and around them at the bottom half of the table will be quite important.
Yeah, I think for Wealdstone, it's not been the best couple of weeks for them. A strong point against Solihull overall. I think they were disappointed they didn't take all 3 points there after taking the lead against them. But you look at these home games, and of course Paul, the usual co-host, isn't with us tonight, and he'll probably be happy to be missing this one after that result. But you look at some of the results recently. Hartlepool at home, a draw, strong point. What's the issue with Wealdstone at the moment? Maidenhead losing to them, a side around them in the relegation battle. Fylde losing to them, another side around them in the relegation battle. And then Tamworth, yes, of course, a lot higher up in the division. But when you look at, like you've mentioned there, the actual squads and quality in the squads on paper, a home game against Tamworth, who are certainly not as strong away as what they are at home, you would have liked to have thought Wealdstone would have been it. That was a winnable game for Wealdstone. And of course, wasn't the case for them to pick all 3 points up or even a point. So I think they'll be a little bit frustrated by that. Of course, they're in the drop zone now. It is still in their hands. They've got a game in hand on Fylde. But a couple of weeks ago, at the start of January, just before Alex Reid returned to Oldham, it was looking like Wealdstone were going to pull away and climb into the mid-table positions. They had about 3 games in hand on sides above them, and they were out of the drop zone at that time. Now they've only got 1 game in hand, and they're actually in the drop zone, and they actually need to win that game in hand to just go 1 point above Fylde at the moment. So for me, overall, for Wealdstone, it is certainly testing times for them. I think a big plus is Alex Reid coming back. Of course, scored at the weekend, didn't really make an impact on Tuesday night, but you've still got him back and you know he's going to produce goals. So I think hopefully for Paul's perspective and the Wealdstone fans, they can stay up this season. But yeah, great result for Tamworth. They're a side that just feel like they're getting closer and closer to safety this season. And, you know, we speak about them having such a good home form. When you're getting results like that away from home, it's not going to do them any harm, is it?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think one thing is it's quite interesting looking at both Tamworth and Wealdstone because as 2 part-time teams, they play quite contrasting football. Tamworth have kind of gone for the generic, part-time, play to not lose, pick up as many points as you possibly can, sit deep, play rough, physical, maybe a bit more direct than other teams as well. Whereas Wealdstone, they've ever since Maynard's been there, they've always liked to gamble a bit more with the way that they play. They set up in a bit more of a unique way with the back 3, and that comes with its risk factors when you're playing out from the back and, you don't have those extra days at training to kind of work on it and integrate new players in. So I think the way that Wealdstone do play, it's always going to come with its, its risks if it doesn't go right. And I think, losing to Tamworth, losing to sides like Maidenhead, who will just try and be physical and bully you and hit you on the break and stuff like that, it can come with its consequences. And I think that's why in recent weeks they may have struggled. You do see Wealdstone quite often, especially this season. They do kind of seem to pick up wins in patches. They got, they beat Rochdale and Aldershot both in a row. The Braintree win, Ebbsfleet draw, Grimsby win, that came in the space of 3 matches in a row. So I do think they'll have patches still this season where they do end up picking up results that will keep them safe, especially like you said, with the quality of Alex Reid. He's proven that in this side he will score goals. So I think ultimately that will benefit them massively going forward. But it's fair to say that at the moment it's probably not one of those patches, and they need to find some points from somewhere, or it's gonna be a really, really nervy end to the season for them.
Yeah, of course, a little bit unsettling there as well with the change in management as well. It wasn't expected for Matt Taylor to actually leave the club. So of course they've had to change manager there, so maybe they've been a bit unsettled in that department, getting that over the line. But no, for me overall, Wealdstone, disappointing result. They were looking to bounce back on Tuesday evening. Final game then that was played on Tuesday night, Dagenham versus Forest Green. I think a standard 2-0 victory for Forest Green away at Dagenham. Dagenham, it does feel like the season's kind of fading out now for them. Although they're closer to the relegation battle than sitting inside the playoffs. I think they're 6 points away from the drop zone. For me, overall, they'll be too good to go down this season or even be involved in a relegation battle. But being 10 points off the playoffs, which I think was the initial aim for Dagenham fans at the start of the season, I don't think they're going to be able to finish inside the playoffs this season. They've had 1 win in 7 as well, which isn't the best of starts for Lewis Young either, is it?
No, yeah. It seems like a bit of an unsettled time at Dagenham at the moment. There's quite a lot of fan uproar online. A few questions raised about the permanent appointment of Lewis Young, especially as well. Some claiming that it might have been the cheap option for them. And it does seem a bit doom and gloom there at the moment. I've been looking on Twitter today at our announcement. We signed Junior Marias on loan. It's fair to say the Dagenham fans in the comments aren't very happy to see him joining us. So yeah, it doesn't seem particularly good. I think if I was them, I would have one. I'd be looking over his shoulder a little bit just in case. Teams below and Woking, Braintree, Aldershot. I think all three of those sides are three sides that are probably, they're on the opposite side of the form table to them. So yeah, it's like you said, on paper they should be, like you said, playoffs should be the aim. But there's a few teams that are catching up on them now, and they look like they're in a bit of a free fall situation, really. But on Forest Green, I think it's a bit of a standard result for them. It was very professional. 2-0 win, controlled the game from minute one, really. I think there's not really much to say on it for Forest Green. I think they're kind of just very professionally going about their business each game.
Just feeling the title list, they're kind of going under the radar. There's a lot of talk about Barnet and York, particularly at the moment, where Forest Green are just quietly going along with the business. They're still very much in this title race themselves, but they don't ever seem to really be at the top for very long. Unlike Barnet, who might be at the top for a couple of weeks, York are the same. Forest Green always seem to be second, so they are a side for me to keep an eye out on. Of course, at the moment they sit second, 4 points behind Barnet, but do actually have a game in hand on them. So they'll be looking to add to the pressure, I believe, on Saturday by, of course, winning that game in hand. And of course, if Barnet do slip up, then there's a massive opportunity for Forest Green there to go top. Of course, for York, York are another side who could actually go above them if they win that game in hand on Forest Green. But for me, overall, Forest Green, they're very much in this title race. A good win for them on Tuesday night. And of course, a home game for them now against Eastleigh on Saturday. And that's it for all the fixtures that we're going to review. Before we get on to predicting the games this game week, of course, 3 up, 3 down, something we've discussed to death on this podcast for a number of seasons now. The news is today, of course, all 72 clubs have supported Mark Ives in putting a letter together to go to the EFL to plead to have an additional promotion place in the National League for 3 up, 3 down. For me personally, it's long overdue. I think everyone in this live chat thinks the same. I think it should be at least 3 sides going up, if not 4. What I don't understand, and this is maybe a talking point, is the fact that why has it taken so long for Mark Ives in the National League headquarters to actually contact clubs to put a letter together to actually plead for an additional promotion place? Because, when Wrexham were in this division, we had Ryan Reynolds, who was an advocate for an extra promotion spot. Notts County, when they were in this division, they were another side. Chesterfield, there's been so many big sides in this division in the past, and of course still is. Yet the National League never really came out and backed it, whereas now all of a sudden they are doing, which is a little bit frustrating that it's taken this long. But to be honest, I just think it's long overdue, and hopefully it can happen next season. Do you think that's something that could realistically happen next season?
I think it's something that realistically should happen. It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it? I mean, you look at, I think it's very telling when you look at League Two and you look at where each newly promoted team comes and finishes. Usually, most teams that go up are they're closest to the playoffs and they are relegation zone. And I think that says a lot about how much quality is being trapped in the National League because this 3 up, 3 down hasn't been implemented. I think most teams in the National League would be able to go up and pretty comfortably, stay up in that league. And, I think half of them at least would probably be able to put up a good fight for that top 7 as well. Like you said, it is weird that it's not been, maybe addressed sooner. One concern I think I do have regarding maybe something getting put into place is I'm sure that the League Two teams will also have a say on it. And I think if you're a League Two club looking at it, I think you're probably thinking we're going to be a lot safer if only 2 teams are going down. We're going to end up financially benefiting from only 2 teams going down because it's less likely that we drop down a level. And I think that could be one roadblock in, maybe getting it put into place. But I think anyone in terms of, just the integrity of football, really, I think it's an absolute no-brainer that it should be, implemented. And, I think if the EFL look at it as a whole, I think they should want this free up, free down system, because I think, you want this kind of quality in your leagues, and you want this kind of quality to be showcased, and you want to be able to say it's your own, rather than having it all stuck in the National League and kind of just, as the years have gone on, it's almost built up. There's almost like a backlog of quality, and I think there's a lot of teams at this level that probably should have had a spell in the EFL by now, but haven't. So yeah, like I said, it's no brainer really. I think it should be something that's put into place.
Dean Brennan was another manager as well. Of course, I did an interview for him. Just a cheeky plug for anyone who wants to see that interview, see that afterwards. I'll leave a link in the description for that after the podcast. But if you like to look at promotion and relegation across the board at the moment, Championship sides are going up to the Premier League, coming straight back down. League One sides are going up. There's a trend where sides are going up at the moment and they're coming straight back down, the majority of them. Of course, it's always hard getting promoted into another division, but particularly at the moment, sides seem to be really struggling when they get promoted. But something that certainly goes against that trend is the National League, the jump from the National League into the EFL. You spoke about it there. National League sides are coming up, and then a lot of them are actually doing back-to-back promotions or solidifying themselves and in the EFL. Even the likes of Harrogate's, who you probably would have expected when they got up to be straight back down or back in a couple of years, they've really been able to stabilise in the EFL. Barrow, another club who a lot of sides would have thought had just come straight back down. And that is because the quality towards the bottom of League Two is so poor. If you look at sides that are actually going down at the moment, most of them are basket cases. For example, Carlisle came down this season. They're an example of another basket case. Morecambe, they're a side that are struggling. If they come back down, they're another basket case where there's financial issues going on there. And sides come down into this division. And then once they sort everything out, they're trapped because it's so hard to get out of this division. Oldham, another side, probably, I won't say unlikely. They're certainly in the chance of getting promoted this season. But I think if you were to decide two sides that are going to get promoted now, not many people at the moment would be saying Oldham. So it's looking like they could potentially spend another year in this league. They're a side that have been trapped in this division and have clearly got a lot of backing themselves. Barnet, a side that have been knocking on the door for a number of years, should really have been in the EFL last season, finishing second, yet aren't. This is what frustrates me, is the fact that clearly just doesn't feel like it has happened. And I think if three sides got promoted and three sides started coming down, for me overall, it would take a number of years for us actually to see a trend of sides going up and then struggling to survive, because there's just so many League Two sides that are long overdue being relegated. There's been so many poor EFL sides in the past that are lingering towards the bottom of the drop zone, yet just survive because only two sides go down. And they get another shot in the EFL for another season, and it's long overdue because there's so many sides in that EFL that actually need to come down long term for them to benefit, to rebuild, and it's just not happening because it's so poor that they only have two relegation spots and they're able to survive. Anything to add on that before we move on? I know a few people have come in the live chat.
Yeah. Just as you mentioned quickly, like you said, there's a few teams in the EFL who really would benefit from maybe going down and resetting. I think, like I said, when these National League teams are coming up, they're more likely to compete for the playoffs and then go down in League Two. And it works the other way around as well. I think, when these teams are coming down from the League Two, they're almost getting trapped in at a level they shouldn't be at. When I'm seeing teams come down from League Two, I think it's maybe the theme's been a bit broken this season, but I look at these teams that come down, and I think they're more likely to compete down the bottom end of the National League than they are the top end. We've seen Scunthorpe go straight down. Oldham really struggled when they first came into the division. And, I feel like it comes down to the fact that people don't seem to realise that this level is on par at times with League Two, and teams take it for granted. When teams come down, they should be able to maybe bring a few youth players through, and the quality of the squad should be reduced to reduced with your budget to manage it a bit better. But no, these teams are coming down and they're downgrading their teams, thinking that they'll be okay, but they're really struggling because the quality is not that much different, and that instantly puts you in a struggling position. So yeah, like it really just it should be an absolute no-brainer that they had this 3 up, 3 down, because there are these like short-sighted points that you could say benefits League Two sides, but when you look at the bigger picture, I don't really see any negatives to the fact or negatives to it being added.
Yeah, 100%. And, I mentioned there about sides coming down and actually benefiting them. That will be if there were 3 promotion spots. But also at the moment, you'd even say, look at Oldham, for example. League Two, they had ownership issues for years. It felt like nothing was changing. They got dropped down into the National League. They got more exposure, which meant that probably more owners wanted. They were more of an interest for a new owner to be able to be the hero and be able to rebuild that side. Whereas if there's 3 up, 3 down, that's going to be the case, and sides are going to be in a better position to actually get back into the EFL a lot quicker. And that's a reason why I personally feel that it needs to come into I can't even say the word fruition. But no, for me overall, I think everyone agrees. Everyone probably agrees with what we've said, which is one of the few things people that in the National League can probably all agree on, is the fact that 3 up, 3 down is needed. The issue is, and I don't know if they can find a way around this, I think this is the aim, is the fact that I've always been told that EFL clubs actually would have to vote for an additional relegation spot. And I have to say, even though I personally think it's the right thing, if Halifax were in the EFL right now and we're in the position that Harrogate are in, I would be 100%, if I had the option, I would not be voting for that. And I think Woking, you'd probably be the same. With
no, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can't blame the League Two clubs for that. But it just feels like it's unfair. They're not going to not want that, to be honest. If you ask a kid, "Oh, would you like candy or not?" they're always going to say they want candy. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing, does it? Overall, so yeah, that's just my thoughts on that overall. But a few people that have come in the comments, Booby's actually said, he's a Rochdale fan. Can you see Ebbsfleet winning another game before the end of the season? That's a good question, that overall. Of course, they've got Rochdale at the weekend, who've just suffered a defeat and not played in a while prior to that game either. Could you see Ebbsfleet getting another win this season?
So yeah, I was going to touch on this a bit earlier, and I've since the last podcast I was on, I've seen Ebbsfleet come down to Woking, and I've watched back a few match replays of them, and they are pretty. They've quite impressively improved on the pitch, whether the results are going their way or not. They look a bit more structured, and they seem to be, giving teams a bit more of a test rather than kind of just kneeling down and losing from like expecting to lose. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them. They are still on the back foot. An improvement doesn't mean that they are suddenly, good enough. But maybe once the back end of the season comes round and there are a few teams that maybe aren't fighting for something anymore, I think that might be their position to maybe kind of pounce on picking up a few wins here and there. You do see that sometimes towards the end of the season when a team is already relegated as well, the pressure's lifted and they do seem to pick up a few wins from that point. But in terms of near future, I think it still is going to be quite tough for them to pick up 3 points.
Just feel like they're a lot more competitive now. If you look at recent results, games have been a lot closer. They've picked a fair few draws up there. I think Woking was one of the games. Yeovil. I thought against Halifax, to be fair, compared to the game at Ebbsfleet earlier on in the season, they felt a lot more, like you've mentioned, better structured and harder to break down. I genuinely feel we just played that well. I think most National League sides on that day would have struggled, to be honest. So it does feel like they're a lot more competitive now, Ebbsfleet, overall. And I think that's the aim for them, isn't it? Just to kind of rebuild for next season, spot which players are capable of actually doing a job for them in the National League South. Because if you look at the squad, yes, it's been a horrendous season for them. There are some individuals in there that you feel you'll be able to actually keep hold of in National League South, because no other National League sides will want them, but would actually do a job in the National League South and be able to rebuild. And this may be the benefit for Ebbsfleet at the moment, is the fact that they kind of, I think, probably will be accepting the fate that they'll be going down next season, which means they've got months to plan for the National League South. They can sort out contracts earlier. They know which players are going to stick with them and which aren't. So they can plan for next season a lot more in advance than other sides, like potentially your Maidenheads, your Wealstones, your Fyldes, your Braintrees, any of those sides who could potentially go down next season. They could be going down last game of the season, right, we need to rebuild instantly and lose a bunch of players, where Ebbsfleet can plan well in advance, and that might be the only benefit for them now, is the fact that they can kind of accept their fate. I'm sure there will be Ebbsfleet fans out there who still feel that they should be aiming to survive this season, but with one win so far this season and being about 15 points adrift, I think for me overall it's going to be a big ask for them to survive this season. But we've also had Martin who said maybe the Halifax pitch does not help home form. Yeah, the only thing you might say about that is the fact that it's the same for both teams. What I've noticed about Halifax at home is the fact that we actually do well against the better side. For example, we've beaten Barnet this season at home. Chesterfield last season we beat. Wrexham the season before we beat. We're doing better against the better sides who are coming out to play football against us, because that means we can play like the away side. Whereas when you get in your Tamworths, no disrespect to them, your Braintrees coming to the Shea, of course, you have to be the side that's going to play football, and I don't think that works to our advantage overall. So I do think that's a good point. Lee said, "Who do you think will go down then, Sam?" Sam, I don't want to actually ask you that question because I want to get you. I don't know if you're going to be able to, but I want to get you on another podcast very shortly to be able to actually ask you that question. So keep your eye out for that, Lee. So sorry to be a spoiled sport, but it has to be done. And then Jamie's come in and said, "Is Josh Stones more of a problem than an asset for York?" I'm going to ask you that question because I've just spoke for about 5 minutes straight.
No, I mean, he shouldn't be. I mean, the reality is, if they're not, they had a few games, York, where they maybe, they tweaked things that they shouldn't have tweaked to maybe try and fit him into the team. If they just play the way they play this season, it's clearly a well-worked system. So, there's no need to change that to fit certain individuals into the team. This Saturday, my team Woking, we're playing York. Ollie Pearce is suspended, so I'm sure we'll see Stones playing in that lone striker role that Pearce has played in this season. And I think that will probably be a bit of a clear indicator of where he's at in this York team. It's not easy to come in. It's not easy to come into a new team, especially one that's flying so high. As a 20-year-old, especially with such a big price tag over his head, there is pressure there. He's still got room to improve as a player. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's a problem for them, but if they are going out of their way to try and fit him into their team rather than making him be patient and earn that spot in the team, then I think that will, as it would for probably any team, be a bit of a problem. But I don't think that would be down to him. I think that's more down to a managerial error.
Well, I just totally don't understand that signing still at all. Even if it works, I keep repeating it. I think there were better options. I don't necessarily think York actually needed to go out and sign another striker. They had Adam Pearce, and then they also had Luca Thomas, who's actually at Halifax, who's a great player, was kind of the backup striker. York fans actually highly praised him as well, and I think he probably would have accepted actually being the backup to Adam Pearce, and they probably could have actually signed him on a permanent basis as well, with the money that they offered Stones for a lot cheaper sum to Leeds as well. Whereas they've gone and signed Josh Stones from Oldham. I've made my points about that to weaken a title contender, and that is literally it, in my opinion overall. It's not worked so far. When he's actually come on for York, it doesn't feel like he fits into their system at all. He came on versus Oldham. They were actually winning that game. York were kind of dominating and seeing the game out. And every time he got on the ball, he just didn't look like the same player that he was for Oldham. So for me, I just really don't understand that signing. He's not scored yet. He's not going to be getting the game time that I think he necessarily needs when you look at his age, and that he should be getting because he's a quality player for this division because of Adam Pearce. And it just feels like a waste for his player development for me overall, and a waste of money for York just to make a statement and weaken a title contender. That's just my thoughts on that overall. I don't know if you agree, because I know I've got a lot of criticism for that. I'm not saying it's not an addition where he's going to be able to score goals. I just don't think it was the best addition at all. And because of the points I've made there, I just think it's a waste of money, to be honest, when they could have got a better option that would have suited York more long term for a much cheaper sum.
Yeah, I mean, I completely see where you're coming from on that. I think, like you said, I think it would be silly to suggest that the fact that he played for Oldham probably oh my God, muddling my words up. It would be silly to suggest that him playing for Oldham didn't play a part in him signing for them. You know, it is, like you said, weakening a rival, and that probably did play a factor. Conveniently for them, you know, Pearce is suspended this weekend. Akinyemi's rumoured to be out for 10 to 12 weeks. So, you know, he's got an opportunity this week to really go and staple himself down into that team and, you know, make a name for himself at the side and, you know, turn up when it matters most. But, you know, like you said, it's a lot of money for a young striker who still has a lot of room to grow as a player. It's a very different system to the way that Oldham play, you know, playing two up front with someone to almost to play off rather than when he was at Oldham, rather than, you know, at York where you're almost feeding wingers and late arriving midfielders in quite an attacking system. Yeah, like you said as well with Luca Thomas, I think he's a brilliant player as well. You know, he's dynamic, quick. You know, he's a really quick thinking footballer as well. His technical abilities, you know, very high in National League player at the very least. You know, signing him on a permanent if you were York, you know, that might have been a really good option for them. But yeah, you know, like he's a good player, Stones. I don't doubt that he'll, like you said, I don't doubt he'll score goals, but, you know, he's not done anything so far to prove that it was the right man to sign. But I'm sure, you know, for the rest of the season, he will be looking to try and, you know, stake that claim and prove everyone who's, you know, saying it's maybe not the right move wrong.
In terms of what they've previously done in their career so far in Luca Thomas and Josh Stones, although I don't think Josh Stones has actually done that much, he just had a good 2 spells at Oldham. Of course, Josh Stones would be the better option, but that costs so much more money than what a Luca Thomas would have, who would have probably been happily been on the bench. For example, if Josh Stones obviously starts on Saturday, does well for York while Pearce is suspended, scores a couple of goals, what's going to happen then? Is he going to be dropped to the bench? Because then he's not going to be happy, is he? That, oh, I've just scored a bunch of goals for you and now you're dropping me to the bench. But then if they kept him in the side and then Pearce is on the bench, he's like, I'm the National League top goal scorer, and you've dropped me to the bench for a lad that's just come in. So it's a no-win situation, in my opinion, unless they change the system. And that would just be the worst thing for York to do at the moment because the current system is clearly effective. So I think it's a headache for Hinshelwood that he doesn't necessarily need. I don't think it was Hinshelwood who recruited this player. I think this was one of Ugly's signings overall. So for me, I just think it's such a waste of money, and it's a headache that Hinshelwood doesn't need. And people say I've got an agenda against York. I totally haven't. I made a point against Oldham that you didn't actually play that well because you didn't need to play that well because Oldham were poor, and I had the half of blooming York messaging me basically saying, "Oh, he's got an agenda just because we scored in the last minute against you." So I haven't got an agenda against any team. Oldham were a couple of months, I had their fans, and now I've got York fans, so I haven't got an agenda. It's just my personal opinion overall, and I just don't get this Stone signing at all. But apart from that, York's recruitment's been perfect, so I can't comment, to be honest, on anything else. We've had Barnet fan called E, who's coming tonight, going to Boston this weekend, have the win, keep the pressure up the top. Yeah, Boston, probably not a good time for Barnet to be playing them. Of course, we'll come on to that very shortly. Of course, Boston beating York. And then we've had EFL clubs saying no. Chris Stringers said, please keep writing Oldham off. It suits us. I don't think either of us have written you off. I don't think you have you, Sam, overall?
No, I wouldn't say they're written off. You know, any team sitting in fourth with a few points off the top. You know, it would be wrong for me to write them off completely. But I also don't think, you know,
just not.
Yeah. I just, like you said, it's the title race. It's a big ask for Oldham, that's for sure. You know, and I don't think that's kind of factual, isn't it? Really, you know, they're at a disadvantage compared to some other teams based on the recent results. But you know, I wouldn't say it's writing them off. I'd say it's more so, you know, just looking at it from a bit of a level-headed perspective. And you know, I think they'll be completely fine. I think they'll be more than capable of finishing that top 3. But, you know, a title, like I said, winning the leagues are going to be a massive ask for them now.
Final point that I'll put on screen before we get onto the predictions, because I know it's basically 10 o'clock and we haven't predicted the games yet. We've had Scott Flint who said third place National League should play third bottom at League 2 in a one-off, see who's best sorted, lol. To be fair, they did that. I think they do that in France, I believe.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
I'd love to see that. I think it'd be very good for the entertainment factor. I don't think it'd be something that'd happen. I think there's more chance of just 3 going up, but that'd be pretty cool, I think, if they added that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that'd be brilliant. Yeah, I say, like you said, the entertainment factor. It's all fun and games though until it's your team in that third spot and you end up having extra game to play. But no, I think that's quite a cool idea.
We'll get on with the predictions then. These are the scores on the doors at the moment. Of course, I'm still 7 points clear. Paul sent me a lovely message saying that he'd won the game week by 1 clear point. And I don't think either of us have particularly had great game weeks either. Sam, you'll be looking to help Paul out and claw some points back. There's no pressure on you because you don't have to wear, well, I suppose, an Aldershot shirt at the end of the season.
Yeah, thank God. But yeah, no, I'll do my best to claw some points back.
Yeah, hopefully you can do. Of course, he's not present tonight, Paul, but his company, PTS Travel, of course, sponsor the Predictions League. I think there's a link in the description. If you have any holidays, if your team's not particularly doing well in the league and you want to go on holiday, even if it's to Barcelona for 3 days, then you can do that. And of course, when during the off season as well, if you've got nothing to do and you're bored and you want to go on holiday, then Paul is the man that you need to contact, and his company, a great travel company, I must say. So myself, he's helped me out. But yeah, we'll get on with the predictions now. We'll have a quick glance at the table where you guys can, as we go through it. Of course, Barnet currently top. Playoffs, Rochdale sits 7th, Halifax losing, both Rochdale and Halifax losing. Bottom 4, Wealdstone, Maidenhead, Boston and Ebbsfleet. It is in Wealdstone's hands, to be fair, to get out of the drop zone, but it is also in Maidenhead's hands as well if they can both win their game in hand against Fylde. Game week 31, starting things off with a relegation battle. I wouldn't have thought this about Aldershot. I've always thought that they'd be able to improve and climb away from the drop zone, but they are only 2 points clear at the moment. Fylde, of course, sitting in 20th against 19th Aldershot. How do you see this one going?
So, yeah, I mean, Aldershot and Fylde, they're both two I think they're both two teams that, like we've touched on Fylde already tonight. Two decent sides who maybe, would want to be higher up in the league. I don't think they would have planned to be down here at this stage of the season. A lot of inconsistencies in the sides at the moment, although Aldershot are actually, I think, 10 unbeaten at the moment in all competitions. So, they're a tough side to beat at the moment. They found a bit more stability in the side. Whereas, Fylde maybe are just scraping the results here and there. The Nick Horton tax, can pull a moment of magic out from anywhere. That always benefits them. But yeah, I've gone for 2-1 Aldershot in this game. I think, the home advantage against a side who are, a bit shaky at the back. The likes of Josh Barrett, who's on fire at the moment. I think he's the kind of player who could pierce this Fylde defence quite simply, nicely putting it. And, I think Aldershot will come away the winners with a 2-1 win.
Aldershot 10 unbeaten in all competitions, but haven't actually won in 8, if you put it like that. So it's actually they're probably not in the best of form in terms of the league. 5 draws in the last 5 games. They need to start turning those draws into wins. Of course, like I've mentioned, they haven't won in the league in 8. Done very well in all the competitions in the National League Cup and, of course, the FA Trophy. But I think the main focus, although Aldershot really want to get to Wembley, and it's one of their main aims as a club overall, I think they'd rather stay in the National League this season than actually get a Wembley trip, to be fair. That might be a question to put out to Aldershot fans. So I do think they need to start focusing on the league to be able to get out of the drop zone. But yeah, like I've mentioned, a winnable game this at home against Fylde. I have actually gone for a draw, 3-3 draw. Fylde will be confident after that win. Both sides have clearly got their vulnerabilities defensively. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. I think this will be the entertaining game. It's my freak result of the game week. What's your prediction for this game?
So yeah, I've gone 2-1 Aldershot. I think a home advantage on top of, some inconsistencies at the back for Fylde. I think Aldershot will be able to take advantage of that with the likes of, Barrett, James Henry. I don't think Aldershot will keep a clean sheet. I think Fylde have got a bit of quality in their final third themselves. And, they've had trouble this season in the defensive areas, or throughout their spells under Widrington. They have been a little bit shaky at the back and have almost opted for this "we can score more goals than you" approach. So yeah, I think Aldershot will come away 2-1 winners.
Altrincham versus Braintree. Braintree in very good form themselves. They've had 1 defeat in 6, actually unbeaten in 4 as well. Not conceding many goals either. They've had 2 clean sheets in that time, and also only conceded 1 goal in their previous 3. But of course, away to Altrincham. I think Altrincham at the moment are a different animal, on decent form themselves in all competitions, still in the FA Trophy. Of course, they won their game against Eastleigh late on. I think it'll be a tough game for Altrincham. I think it's a massive banana skin, but I think they've got the qualities to be able to pull through. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Altrincham win. How do you see it going?
So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's 2 of the more informed teams in this division at the moment. Braintree, they've very much built their season upon defensive structure and stability. Seen a lot of draws come their way. Maybe don't score as many goals as they'd like based on that, but Altrincham are a bit of an opposite. They're free flowing. They like to get forward. The likes of Linney and Newby are absolute, as dangerous as you can get at this level. But like I said, it's 2 very informed teams. I think, I can see Braintree shutting up shop and letting Altrincham try and break them down. I watched Altrincham play the other day in the National League Cup against Wolves. Wolves went down to 10 men quite early, and it was almost an attack v defence game from that point onwards. And Altrincham missed a fair few chances. Their build-up play was quite slow. And against a team that play a low block against them, it is a matter of can they put that enough goals past them to see out a win. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game. I can see Braintree hitting them on the break. Riding the wave that they've got a form at the moment. The likes of Lisby and stuff like that. They've got a goal in them. Very good business to keep hold of him in January, especially as well. But I just can't see either of these teams losing at the weekend. I think they're both on very good strings of form, and I think a draw kind of pans out in this game quite nicely. So, yeah, 1-1 for me.
So good start to the predictions. We've gone for different results each time. I don't think we'll have gone for different results on this prediction though. Boston versus Barnet. Of course, Boston, to be fair to them, got a victory against York. One of the shocks. They've actually done the double over York now, which is very, very odd. I think certain sides just seem to be able to defeat other sides. I know Huddersfield, when they got promoted to the Premier League, don't ask why I've used this analogy. When they got promoted to the Premier League, they got the second season, they got relegated. They got 3 wins all season, and Wolves came about 8th, and they did the double over them. So I guess it's just something that certain sides have is they know how to beat other sides. As for this game, though, Barnet haven't conceded in 450 minutes in the National League. I think they'll have too much for Boston, and I think they're actually going to win 3-0. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I've gone for the exact same. I've gone for 3-0 as well. I did sit and ponder for a little bit over this result because, like you said, it might be that they're a bogey team, but Boston have picked up some decent results this season. Done the double over York. They beat Gateshead in the Cup as well quite recently. But yeah, they've picked up some results across the course of the season. That they look very impressive on paper, but it's not clicked throughout the course of the season. Most of those results as well, bar maybe the home game against York, have come away from home as well. Their home form hasn't been particularly impressive. But Barnet, they've been really impressive, haven't they, recently? Like I said, on the last time I was on this podcast, I very wrongfully wrote them off in terms of maybe winning the league. But they've very much gone about their business quite quietly. And while, York and Forest Green have been kind of taking some plaudits, they've just got on with their business and they've gone and won the games that they need to win. And they've been very professional about their approaches. So yeah, I've gone for the same. I've gone for a 3-0 win to Barnet. I think it's just a professional outing for them. And I can only see it really end in one way. And that's in Barnet taking 3 points.
Dagenham versus Yeovil. I think Yeovil's playoff hopes are holding on by a thread, to be honest. Not too many points actually splits them from the playoff spots. But if you look at the composition, they're quite a bit off the playoff spots. I'll actually get that up here for you now. I think they're down into 14th, I believe, at the moment. Yeah, 14th. As for Dagenham, we've spoke about them and about their season fading away. Of course, you still feel that they could potentially be dragged into that relegation battle, and they should be looking over their shoulders at the moment. Yeovil have not won in 7, and they've had 4 draws in that time. As for Dagenham, they need to get back to winning ways themselves. I think they've only had 1 win in 7. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this game. I think it's one of the less attractive games of the game week, I have to say. What's your prediction for this one?
Yeah, so I can see this being quite a scrappy match of football. Like you said, it's 2 teams that are on the down rather than the up at the moment. You know, it's a bit doom and gloom. You know, I don't know what's happening at Yeovil really, but you know they've had a lot of players in, a lot of players out. You know, I don't know what's happening with the ownership, but I think yesterday he said he was selling up the club, and today he said he's sticking with them. So that's a bit all over the place. You know, there's a bit of uncertainty there. You know, Dagenham are in a bit of a transition period as well. I think it's a bit of it'll be quite a scrappy game of football with 2 teams who are quite struggling at the moment. So I've gone for a 0-0 draw. I think it's going to be, you know, a quiet match, a bit of a battle, and I think they'll just kind of hold each other. They'll hold each other off, and it'll lead to a 0-0 draw.
Next game then that we will have a look at is Forest Green versus Eastleigh. Forest Green, like we've mentioned, on the tail of Barnet at the moment. Away from home, have got the best away record in the division at the moment. Halifax have a game in hand on them, so if they win that away game, we'd go back top. That's why I know that. But no, their home form, to be fair, they've actually been unbeaten at home all season. But in those 11 games at home, they've actually had 5 draws. So a fair few draws for side that's in the title race at home. Of course, like I've mentioned, still unbeaten at home overall, going very strong. Eastleigh, they're a side for me that I feel are really capable of getting a result at Forest Green. You know, we've mentioned about Forest Green dropping points at home. Halifax is a game, I believe. Tamworth, I think. There was another game as well against a side that's struggling as well, where they drop points at home. I'll try to get that up now if I can remember it. And I just Braintree, yeah. Eastleigh.
Yeah, I was there at that game, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think Eastleigh are aside for it's gone off. Eastleigh are aside for me that are capable of finishing it well. A side that are capable of getting a result, I should say, for this game. They've got another side a bit like Fylde, probably a bit of an upgrade. The fact that they've actually got some really good individuals in that side. I just don't think they play well as a team overall. I don't think the manager's got the best out of them. I know they've had a number of managers this season. So I think they're capable of getting a result here. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going?
On Eastleigh, I think they're a side this season I look at have been very consistently inconsistent. They seem to get results in patches, and then they seem to go on patches of really poor runs. They're lacking a few players at the moment for injury. I think McCallum's out injured at the moment. You know, they've added, you know, Sheikh Balam from Oldham and Raquel Pike from Grimsby. They haven't really seemed to get going yet in the final third. 3 losses on the bounce, I believe, in all competitions for them at the moment too. You know, when you compare that to Forest Green, who, you know, they do the basics very well. You know, they're very, very good on, you know, doing what they plan out and set out to do. At the moment, I can only see it going one way, and I think that's a Forest Green win. So I've gone for a 2-0 Forest Green result.
Next game that we'll have a look at, Maidenhead versus Southend. Southend have come into a bit of form recently, just at defeat against Barnet, and apart from that, on quite strong form. 1 defeat in 5 for them. They've had 4 victories in that time. As for Maidenhead, mixed form overall, a few wins in there that they certainly need to get out of the drop zone. It is in their hands. But I just feel like Southend are on decent form at the moment, and I think they'll be able to get a result here. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Southend win. How do you see it going?
So yeah, I mean, Southend this season, they've against the teams down the bottom, they've kind of fared in different ways. You know, they're a team that like to keep hold of the ball and knock it about. Maidenhead are a team that like to make games scrappy, especially at home. They've tend to make their home ground somewhat of a fortress. Maybe not in terms of results, but you know, teams do dread going to Maidenhead. It's got that reputation for, you know, being a bit of a gritty ground to go to, and you never really know what can happen in there. But I think that they're not in the best of form at the moment, and I think I can't remember where I mentioned it, but I said something about Maidenhead maybe being the best team they've ever been on a technical level.
Yeah.
But I don't think that suits the way that Alan Devonshire likes to play. He needs a physical team who's going to go out there and bully aside. I think that's what's been the hindrance for them this year. So I think, Southend, I think Southend will pick up 3 points. I've gone for 2-1 Southend. I think it'll be a bit of a quite professional performance from them. Nick Hayes joining Southend as well. I quite like that as a signing. But yeah, I think it'll be I've gone for 2-1.
Yeah, mainly you mentioned them there about being better on a technical basis. But if you actually look at them defensively, which they've always been renowned, like you mentioned, for being good at, and that's why they've been able to stay up in previous years, they're actually projected to concede over 100 goals this season, which is unlike Maidenhead. And I don't think it suits Alan Devonshire at all. So they're certainly going to struggle, and I'm sure that's something they need to rectify. They had a number of losses defensively in the summer. Beckwith was one. They lost someone else as well. I think a wing-back.
Zico Asare, I think it was. He went to Harrogate.
Yeah, he was another loss as well. So perhaps defensively, they've been weakened this season, and that's clearly took its toll. But going forward, it does feel like they've got some good individuals. Mikulski, Adam Smith as well as another player who's done well this season for them. But I just think the way Maidenhead play, I just think it's going to be a big ask if they play like that for them to stay up, because defensively they're just not strong enough this season for me to be able to survive. Next game then, Rochdale versus Ebbsfleet. We spoke about Ebbsfleet being more competitive. Rochdale have just had a defeat to Oldham, and previous to that hadn't played in a long time. I don't think since the 1st of Jan in the league. Can you see... of course, for screen as well, losing to them, but prior to that, they hadn't played since the 1st of Jan. Can you see Ebbsfleet causing an upset here at all?
No. Putting it simply, I think the first question is the game going to be on? Rochdale,
Yeah.
they've got a few inconsistencies with the ground at the moment, but I think it should be. I think with Rochdale, I think as the season goes on as well, and the longer and longer Ebbsfleet go without getting a win, I do think that one thing that will almost play to their advantage a bit is no one wants to be the team that loses to Ebbsfleet, and that does add a bit of pressure to the game. Do I think that will affect Rochdale? No, I think Rochdale come away winners at home. They knock the ball around really well. Rochdale, they play a very appealing style of football, and I think they are just a better side. I think it's as simple as that, really. So I've gone 3-1 Rochdale. A month ago, I probably would have said 3-0, maybe even 4-0. But, Ebbsfleet, they are a little bit improved. I can see them. I do think they have somewhat of a goal threat now. So, yeah, I've gone 3-1.
Yeah, George Muncure's made the move there, and he's done a lot better so far at Ebbsfleet than what he did at Southend when he was on loan there. Of course, 3 draws in the last 5 for Ebbsfleet, been a lot more competitive. Rochdale, not been on the best of form if you look at those 2 games, haven't played at home in a long time. I think this is the first game they'll have played at home in 2025, unless on the 1st of Jan that was a home game. I can't honestly remember. I think Ebbsfleet are going to give him a proper good game here, but I do think Rochdale will be able to pull through. I'm going to go for a 3-2 Rochdale win. We'll move on to the next game now, and it's Matt Taylor's Solihull Moors versus Mickey Mellon's Oldham. I want to firstly ask you, I know we're an hour and 20 minutes in now. We've only got a few games to go, but a question I want to ask you, Matt Taylor, of course, he's coming to Solihull. What's your overall opinions on him as a manager? Because I know Paul's not too keen, and for me personally, I was a bit shocked to see him get appointed as the Solihull manager.
Yeah, I was a bit shocked as well, if I'm honest. Andy Wing, I think at this stage in the season, I think it was always going to be quite difficult to replace him. But it does come a bit left field. I don't think he's exactly torn up trees at Willstone this season. There has been spells where they've played some quite good football and picked up some good results. But I didn't think that after half a season, what he's done at Willstone was enough to warrant a move to a full-time team up in the division. I thought, he's had a few tough spells as a manager in the EFL, and I thought, getting the opportunity he did at Wealdstone to, come in and try and build a team and keep them up in the division. I think to jump ship that early, it's a decision I think most people will question. From a Solihull perspective, I think there probably will be questions asked as well. And I think it will just come down to whether he can deliver on the pitch for them now. And tactically, I don't think it's been the best start for him. Although I do like some of the signings he's made. Ollie Wright from Southampton, he's played really well for Yeovil this season in goal. I also really like that he's brought Jack Wells-Morrison in. I think he was someone who really impressed me when I've seen Wealdstone play this season. Very good technically and a proper engine in midfield. And I think the National League team could have done with signing Sonny Fish quite a lot earlier as well. I think he's quite a good striker for this level too. He's fairly prolific in the National League South. So it's one that maybe at face value leaves a bit to be desired. But if he can go and pick up the results, that's get Solihull into the top 7 this season, I'm sure most fans won't complain.
Yeah, for me personally, I can't see them doing that under Matt Taylor. I'm not a massive fan of him. I thought he did okay at Wealdstone eventually. I think at times he could have potentially have been sacked, to be honest, the way they started. But Wealdstone did back him, of course, backed him financially as well. I think with the players that they brought in, got quite a big squad. And he's jumped ship. I'm more I don't blame him for going, but I'm more disappointed with Solihull. You've mentioned there about it being difficult to appoint a manager mid-season, and I totally understand that. But I still feel there would have been a better option out there than Matt Taylor, particularly because I'm sure they'll have actually had to have spent giving Wealdstone a fee as well to poach him from them. So for me, overall, it's a little strange. I think what he did in the EFL, I think everyone knows there's a lot to be desired there. It's a strange one. And my mid-season prediction of having Solihull Moors in the playoffs for me, I'm already regretting it now. Of course, this game versus Oldham, back-to-back wins now, does feel like they're starting to gather a bit of momentum once again. And Solihull at the moment, the way they're playing, for me, I don't think Oldham will have any issues here. And I actually think Oldham will win this game 3-1. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I've gone for a similar approach. The last 4 games for Solihull have been 3 losses and a draw, and that was to a Wealdstone side that Taylor used to manage. So it's not looking good for Solihull. And like I said, I think it would be a bit of a task now for them to finish in the top 7. I've gone for 2-0 Oldham. Again, I think it's just a professional display out there for them. I think they'll go out and just play their game. I don't think they need to particularly tweak much. Like you said, I think they're gathering a bit of momentum now, and I think it's the game that if they do have an intention of maybe hanging around in that title race, it is a game that they do need to pick up 3 points from, and I think they will. I think 2-0 Oldham's my prediction.
Sutton versus Hartlepool, battle of the industrial side, you may say. Sutton on good form at the moment, looking to get back inside the playoffs themselves at the moment. Hartlepool mixed form, but a lot of draws there themselves. And I'm going to go for a draw for this game, a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going?
Yeah, so I've gone for a 1-1 draw as well. Like you said, I think 2 very industrial sides, 2 very physical sides that, also very much play to not lose. Sutton, they seem to have picked up some good form in the shape of Will Davies, who's absolutely on fire at the moment. But it does linger in my mind as well. Last time they played each other, you'd think it'd be a low-scoring game, and it finished 4-3 Hartlepool. So, yeah, it's a bit of it's an interesting fixture, that's for sure, from an outside perspective. But also taking into account that Anthony Limbrick's now got full control at Hartlepool. I don't think the way that they played before when he was a coach, I don't think is exactly how he would have wanted to play. Having seen him during his time at Woking, he's very much a possession type manager. He likes to play out from the back, play quite an easy on the ice style of football. I don't know if he'll be able to do that until next season under at Hartlepool, given the players they've got at the club. But I think it's 2 physical sides that will probably just go toe to toe. Might be a bit of a scrappy game of football. I think it will finish. 1-0.
1-1. And next game that we'll have a look at, Wealdstone versus Gateshead. Wealdstone out of form, Gateshead not in the best of form either. Wealdstone being the home side for me overall, it's more of a gut feeling than being at home. Gateshead at the moment just seem lost, I feel. Of course, a number of players have left the side. A few players have come in. I think it's hard to embed into the Gateshead season. They've been excellent at being able to recruit players who can do that. Has their luck, if you put it down to luck, has their luck run out now with the recruitment? For me personally, I think they're going to really struggle in this second half of the season, and I think it's going to be a question whether they can stumble over the line and finish inside a playoff spot. Because for me, honestly, sides below them are improving. I think it's not certain. I think there's going to be that they're going to finish inside the playoffs, and there's going to be it's going to be a bumpy road. I feel for them until the end of the season. As for Wealdstone, not in the best of form, they need a win under Neil Gibson. He needs to get that first win, and they need to climb out of the drop zone. And I think they will be able to do that. They've got a lot of firepower going forward now in Alex Reid and Ashford as well. So I'm actually going to back Wealdstone to win this game 2-0. How do you see it going?
So yeah, I think it's quite an important game for Gateshead. I think it's fair to say that Magne, since coming in, he's maybe not hit the heights that Elliott and Williamson did during their spells as of yet. Obviously, he's still able to do that maybe somewhere down the line. But, you know, it's been a tough period for him. As most Januaries go for Wealdstone, they've lost players that they probably didn't want to lose. Looking at the positives, they did manage to keep Regan Booty. I think that's pretty massive for them. You know, he's key to their team. But this week they actually made the addition of Rolls and Horton, and that Brandon Horton signing. I look at that and I think that might be one of the best bits of business they've done all January. And it doesn't all come down to the facts of Horton's individual quality, although he is a very good player. You know, he fits their system very well because he's a very attack-minded fullback. He can play that wing-back role pretty well. I also think that what this does for them is it allows them to play Luke Hannon further up the pitch and give him a bit more freedom to maybe, you know, be the creative player that people know him for, and, you know, give him more space in the final third and less defensive duties. And I think down the line for Gateshead, that will be a massive benefit for them. You know, it's not been a good run of form for them overall. And Gibson, you know, he's still settling into Wealdstone. He's got to try and adjust his team to how he wants to play. And I think due to that, I've actually backed Gateshead this game, and I've gone 2-1 Gateshead. I think it will be a close game still, but, you know, I think Gateshead will just about have the quality to get over the line.
York versus Woking then. Woking, a lot of draws in there, to be fair, but under Neil Ardley, I think we're a different animal now since that takeover happened as well. And I think they'll give York a good game, a bit like the Altrincham and Braintree game. I think it might be a case of York looking to break through this Woking side and be able to break them down. And I think it'll be a really tough game, but I am going to back York to win this one. It seems to be relentless at home overall, and I'm going to go for them to win 1-0. How do you see it going?
So yeah, since Ardley's come into Woking, he's yet to lose a game. This is the biggest test yet. There's a few mitigating factors to it. You know, Ollie Pearce is suspended for York, but we're also missing Dale Gorman through suspension as well, which is absolutely massive for us because he's absolutely bossed the midfield since Ardley's come in. He's become that player that we were all promised when he's first signed. You know, it is going to be a gritty game, and I think it will probably be one that maybe some of the more casual fans who look at maybe just the result on paper, I think it'll be a lot more closer than they think. I have gone for 2-1 York. I think them at home, I think it will be I think they should see it over the line. You know, it's a tough game. And I know Ardley will be out there looking for a bit of revenge after his last spell. But I think the quality they possess should see them over the line. So yeah, 2-1 York for me. Which
final game, and it's what? Sorry, go on.
It pains me to say it. That's the 2-1 York.
Oh, fair enough. Then to be fair, I thought because. I could see why someone would actually back Woking to get a result here, or thinking you might go for a draw there, but perhaps being more realistic, you might say there, York winning the game. But the final game then that is, of course, showed on DAZN, a game that I don't think will involve many goals. Of course, Halifax on decent form, despite that defeat in midweek. Tamworth have been very, very strong at home this season. Can my side do something Tottenham couldn't and score against Tamworth in 90 minutes at Tamworth Stadium? For me personally, I think we will, and I'm pretty confident that we can get all 3 points here. Very strong away from home we are, and I think we might be able to do a job on Tamworth and come away with 3 points. So I might be being a bit biased there because Tamworth have been strong at home, but I do think we'll win, and I'm going to go for a narrow 1-0 win. We're kind of known to these type of games away from home. We know how to set up against these sides, and we usually come away with the result. And I'm pretty optimistic at the moment, despite that result in midweek. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Halifax win. How do you see it going? A draw?
Yeah. See, I think you banged the nail on the head there, personally. Yeah. Like you said, we mentioned it earlier. Halifax's their away form is, it's very impressive this season. And although Tamworth, they have made their home ground a bit of a fortress. They are very difficult to beat. They're a team that stick out like a sore thumb in this league. The AstroTurf pitch, the long throw routines, the physical aspects of the game. I think they're always going to be a tough opposition, but just purely because they go out to play a completely different way to most sides do. Nonetheless, like you said, Halifax now set up against these teams away from home, and they've proven that with the results they've got. So I've also got a 1-0 win to Halifax.
Fair enough then. I thought you were going to go for a draw there, to be honest. I could see why a neutral would go for a draw. But yeah, fair enough. Then you've backed my side. Hopefully don't follow the curse that Paul has. Whenever he backs us to win, we always seem to lose, to be honest. The opposite seems to happen. But no, I think that more or less wraps up the predictions. These are the scores on the doors, if I can get them up here, the current scores. I am in the lead. I think we've gone for very different results overall this game week, so there could be an opportunity for me to heavily extend my lead, or for you to maybe even get level for Paul, to be honest. It is doable, I think, this game week, because we've gone for such different results. Sam, once again, I do really appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, yeah. It's a pleasure to be here, honestly. Hopefully more opportunities in the future. So, Paul, keep going on holidays.
Yeah, there certainly will be more opportunities in the future for you to come on, Sam, and it's a privilege to have yourself on. Like I've said, you're a National League analyst, and it's great to have you on. Would you like to give your page a plug quickly?
Yeah, so yeah, just on Twitter, that's all I function on. Samuel Cole 1115 on X. Yeah, if you feel free to go and give it a follow. I do just all National League content analysis, player breakdowns, just mainly just my opinion really, and kind of just breaking down what I think. But yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming on once again, Sam. Also, check out our sponsors, Cards Accept. There's a link in the description. You get 50% off your card machine. No contracts or monthly fees. Remember to like and subscribe. If you'd like to become a channel member and support the channel further, it's just £2.99 a month. If you like the live chat and emojis and you like promoting your own club, you can do that if you become a channel member. You can use your club badge in the live chat. I know we had 1 or 2 Barnet fans that became members over the last couple of days to see that Dean Brennan interview. You get early access to interviews, I may also add, as I say that. So any future interviews that we do, you may get a few days early access. Also, drafts that I do before I actually fully edit videos, I'll just put them out. So you might get like a day early access on a random video as well in the future, and it will be a draft of the actual thing as well. So if you want that, then please remember to become a channel member. That's enough of me waffling now. Remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you next